So this is an interview with Alia Lassal of Wooga fame, and we talk all about how you can use data to find new creative concepts, or indeed even a creative testing methodology, which she talks about in detail, and it's super interesting. A huge amount of experience and just lovely to speak with and lovely to work with. Here's some great content for you from Alia. I'm Richard Bond from Replay, and this is Expert 360. I've got a problem with my camera for some reason. Alia isn't frozen. If I shrink you down and make you big again, if you want to wave, Alia, there you go. The camera works and then suddenly it stops. So apologies if Alia just freezes for a second. So Alia, after that technical issue, would you like to introduce yourself?
So I'm Alia Lassal, UA manager at Wooga for 2.5 years now. Before that, I was in a Euro role for a PC and console game publisher. And before that, I was working in the NGO sector, doing a lot of CRM and some social media.
Wow. So you've had the full gamut through that kind of marketing side of things as well, right?
Yeah.
Very specifically performance marketing now.
Yeah, with a strong focus on creative power.
Well, interesting. And this could be ideal. Let's see what we're going to talk about. And let's dive straight in. It says translating data into concepts. So let's start at the beginning. Why do you think this is important?
I think all UA managers would agree that creatives are really important for us. They are a key driver of mobile effectiveness, especially with increasing automations across major platforms. It started with Google a few years ago, then Facebook, AA. For us, it's really important to identify the good creatives because they do improve our delivery. Without increasing the cost, they help us acquire quality users. For us, it's really, really important to make sure we identify those good creatives and we don't spend the campaign budget on the bad ones that are not bringing good results. For UA managers, I think data are the spinal cord of UA. In general, it's really important to use those data and analyze what's happening, what's working, what's not working. It's really telling us also a story about the audience, what they like, what they don't like, the motivations to play the game, for example. So I think combining both is really important to make sure we improve our creative performance, the campaign performance in general, and also take our creative power to the next level.
Yeah, I totally agree. Data it really leads a lot of this. There's something that we see quite often. We call it paralysis by analysis, right? Where there's so much data that you get into sort of too much granularity. You aren't able to turn that into action or turn that into something. So in your experience, what are the major issues or the major problems that can come from, trying to analyze the data and turn it into creative?
But this is exactly what you said. Like when we have a lot of data and too much data, it's overwhelming. And sometimes you just don't know what to do with it. It's also like looking at the right data and really like get something out of it. It's really important. I think here, if you don't have a proper testing methodology, it gets really complicated. If you don't start collecting data without like asking questions and what you want to achieve, it's really challenging because having like a kind of proper testing structure, it's going to really help to capture the data in a way that can lead to new concept exploration. Because collecting data without a direction or just no hypothesis, nothing is just harder. It's just harder.
So this might be a really stupid question, right? Is it important for you, do you think, to have a question that you're looking to solve and then go and find the data that proves and disproves that? Or is it better to start looking at the data and then raise the questions from that?
I think both are very important. On one side, starting with question is really like when you have a creative problem to solve, for example. So you start somewhere, you have a question and you can identify your KPIs and what you want to get from it. Like you have a direction. But sometimes you just look at some random data and you can see things. And I think those two approaches, I think it's important to do this in parallel. One can be dedicated to A/B testing, like you have a problem, you want to solve it, and you have a plan, basically. And the other way is more like, I'm looking for some insights. Let's check what's happening. And then you can really read through the data and you can come up with a very interesting insight that can be used for your campaigns or the creative problem that you are also trying to solve.
So I find this really interesting the way that you talk about it, right? Because when we think of data, we think of such rigidity. And what I love about it is you're kind of feeling your way through, trying to get the best bits. Do we have a hypothesis we can prove or disprove? Let's see what the data is telling us. And like you said, telling you a story about your audience, which I think is super interesting. So it sounds like, there are potential issues with this for sure. Thinking back to times where you've solved this, how do you go around kind of overcoming the issues of this, massive amount of data? Do you just pick up one thing and run with it and test it?
Hmm.
Because you mentioned your testing methodology already, right?
For us at Wooga, we know our audience very well. We have a lot of data, and we combine a lot of sources of data to really come up with something. But in UA, our main problem was like we have a lot of creative and a lot of data, and we could identify the winners and the losers. This is something easy to identify, but then when it comes to why is it winning, why is it losing, it's a different question.
Mm.
So for us, the main challenge was more like go beyond the identification of winners and losers, but really understand what is driving volume and monetization in a creative, really like try to understand the winning features and combinations. That was our main issue. And this is how we decided to come up with a proper testing methodology. We just decided to have a more scientific approach of testing with like asking yourselves questions, identify the KPIs. And then we had a testing roadmap divided into different rounds, in which each round was dedicated to a specific test on a graphic element of the ad. Could be like the atmosphere, character, branding assets, etc. Thanks to this, we were really able to understand why a creative was winning and also like the winning combination. Because sometimes you just have like a great video and it's not working and you don't know why. And on the other side, you see another concept that was less promising. You see it's killing it and you're like, okay.
Hey, people are crazy, right? Anyway, so people are illogical. But I love what you're saying about that. It sounds like you're actually going to learn a lot about your audience. You're going to learn a lot about them just through that testing methodology, right?
Yeah.
Wooga's got quite a bit of data, and you've been sitting on quite a few titles for a while, right? So let's think about new titles or people who are launching new titles or people who are just getting into this who perhaps don't have the same wealth of data. Would you suggest that they come up with a testing methodology first? Would you suggest that they just throw everything out there and start working their way through it? So how do you get to these kind of insights when you're starting from scratch, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's a good question. There are a lot of things that we can start working on before coming up with a test, because before coming up with a test, you have some questions. So I think here there are a lot of things that can be done, like collect competitive insight in the industry. We have a lot of things are online. You can also check like the market research tools. There are a lot of things to explore through App Annie, Sensor Tower on Yuzu that can really give an idea about something specific. Also, like try to get like some information from partners, MMPs or advertising platforms or operating systems. They're really keen to share quantitative and qualitative data when it comes to a specific market or an event that could be like a soft launch. So before starting anything, I would just like try to learn more about the market or the context where you are launching a new game. Yeah, if you have the chance to work with a publisher that has a diverse portfolio, it's a bonus because you can get some inspiration from a similar product. If it's not the case, I would just learn as much as possible from external sources and start testing.
That's really interesting. So you're really saying like understand the market, understand the lay of the land, draw some inspiration from that before you just launch into it.
Yeah, you need to, I mean, if you have nothing, you need to start from somewhere and it can get overwhelming, and learning about the ecosystem first is really good to get some inspiration and get some ideas and try to have a plan.
Amazing. So, Alia, look, I know you're crazy busy, so I can't thank you enough for spending some of your time talking to us today. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do so if they wanted to continue this conversation?
LinkedIn is the perfect platform.
Okay, that's great. Well, I'll put a link in below. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.